Moving to our second segment, we begin to think about our body, or the tools that we have to work with in this presentation. One of the greatest things that we have to work with in our tool as speakers would of necessity be our voice. The things that we say. There is a non-leadership training phrase that goes like this: if you can't fascinate him with the facts, baffle him with the bull. Well, that may not quite be an accurate application within the realm of our profession. Nevertheless, the voice we use is a tremendous tool to ensure our success. We need to have a little bit of variety. We need to do things a little bit differently as we proceed through our presentation to maintain the interest and attention of our audience. And there's various specific ways that that can be done. First of all is the rate at which we speak. Sometimes we can afford to go very fast and we're getting through some announcements and getting down to the meat of our matter. But as we get to things important, we can also slow down as a point of emphasis to make sure that we garner the attention of people have. Secondly, you can move to the pitch. We've all heard speakers who are very low, mellifluous tones as they move through, but sometimes we can get attention by varying that pitch. Sometimes, as a point of emphasis, we need to move in something really high to show that we are placing some importance on that. And sometimes, for dramatic purposes and to indicate sincerity and truthfulness and maybe a more serious aspect, we can also lower our voice to a much lower pitch. Secondly, we can do tone. We can vary that tone from a very edgy line that we can get people's attention to something a bit more soft with some corners and round edges on it, much like many presidents have done in the old fireside chats as they make their reports. And then the fourth item is the one that we've got to be very careful of. Too much of it can be overdone and be contraindicated with this, and that is going to be our volume, how loudly we speak. First of all, a message that is inaudible can be tremendously irritating. If you are in a scenario that it has amplification, a speaker system, a microphone, be sure to use that. You may not feel comfortable using that and may step away from the podium where the microphone is affixed. However, for those people in the back of the room, it is a tremendous inconvenience for them to have to struggle to hear you. The microphone is there for your audience benefit. It is not there for your inconvenience. But that volume is something, even with a microphone, we can adjust. We can do things and get very soft as a point of emphasis to tell people we really mean what we're saying. We can also use some very loud and harsh things in order to get their attention, especially on the back row as they seem to be falling asleep. And another part of volume that can be very effective from time to time is the very idea of silence. Think, if you would, of some dramatic presentations. Think of a stirring rendition of God Bless America, the Star-Spangled Banner, where the crowd is so wrapped up in that presentation that immediately following its conclusion, there is a very deafening period of silence where awe and amazement just take over and there are no words. So make sure you keep silence as something in your bag of tricks. The timing of it, the frequency, be careful with that. The length of it, it has to be long enough to be effective. In many occasions, you might have silence periods of from 6 to 8 seconds, particularly if you are asking questions. You are working around the audience as you move around the crowd, and you may want to direct a question to everyone. At what time is the best time to begin preparing for a ball game? Things like that would be a good time for an extended silence to elicit responses from the crowd. Generally, in that 6 to 8 second time frame, people will rise up and answer in order to save the crowd. So be careful of its use, but don't be afraid of the use of those kind of things. And otherwise, we move to another part of our body, a part of our tools, and that is our gestures. One of the great things about gestures is it can be very much an attention-gathering thing. It can also be a point of emphasis to people. We've got two broad things. Do we use two arms or do we use one arm when we do things? Two arms a lot of times can relax a speaker. A lot of times you see people that use very broad and demonstrative gestures at the beginning of a presentation in order to relax them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to have you here with us today. I'm so glad to be participating in your event. Then on the other hand, you can use one arm in order to make a point of emphasis. You want the crowd to really get this point that you are driving home. And in connection with that one arm, we get into the use of the hands, the fingers. Ironically, 2 fingers seems to be a stronger gesture than just one finger, because one finger can be deemed to be accusative and pointing out someone, and can also be very inappropriate depending on which one finger you use. So be careful about that. 2, to relax yourself and to make a point of emphasis. 1, to really drive home that point so that your crowd realizes the things that are going on and are good. And lastly, within the tools, be careful about fidgeting. You may have a remote control device. A lot of times you'll have people with a fountain pen and they're just clicking back and forth, or they're picking at their tie, which would be a little tough to do in this case. Consequently, I wear bow ties. Be careful about your fidgeting. It will distract from the importance of your message. Sometimes you just need to relax and be still, especially with happy feet. Be cautious about moving things around as you go. We don't want things like this, these gestures, these motives that can be very positive influences, to ruin the effectiveness of our message.